Most folks who grew up going to Sunday school on Sunday mornings may have only been exposed to one perspective of what Jesus' life, teaching, death, and resurrection meant for people. They might be surprised to learn that, throughout history, there have been many ways that people have understood the purpose of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. In this video, we want to invite you to think about this question, because what you think he came to do changes what you think Christianity is all about. Some people believe that Jesus came to appease an angry, punishing God. Others that he came to satisfy the requirements of a divine law. Some believe that he used violence to accomplish his goals, and others think that violence is the problem Jesus came to solve. Some theories are law-based, others that he came to solve the problem of evil, while still others believe that the cross is either meant to scare people or to persuade them that God loves them. There are about 20 theories about the meaning of the work of Christ. They have many names, such as Christus Victor, ransom theory. There are theories of divine satisfaction, governmental theories, and penal substitution. These theories all have different centers. Some are man-centered, meaning that Jesus was trying to solve a problem concerning people. Some are God-centered, meaning that the problem had to do with what God could do. And others are Satan-centered, meaning that Satan had some kind of power that Jesus needed to defeat. Some suggest that God or the devil required the death of Jesus, or that God was paying the devil, or that God was tricking the devil. But the most popular idea is that when Jesus died on the cross, God was trying to make a deal with himself and not the devil. But at Forging Ploughshares, we think these ideas make things too complicated. Most of these explanations were created hundreds, even thousands of years after the life of Jesus and the writing of the New Testament. And most of them reflect the values, attitudes, and assumptions of the time they were conceived. Because of that, they are different from the ideas of the earliest Christians who lived under Roman rule and were persecuted for being in the minority. These early Christians had no trouble associating the Roman Emperor, Caesar, and his empire with the work of the devil because they were being persecuted by them. But when the Emperor Constantine became a Christian, it was a lot harder to see how the power of the devil was the same as the power of the empire. In the 11th and 12th centuries, two theologians, Abelard and Anselm, lived in a time when the most popular early theory, Christus Victor, which said that Jesus had defeated the powers like Caesar on the cross, seemed to no longer apply. Rome had become Christian, in theory, and most people identified themselves as Christians. So these two men proposed very different theories about Jesus. Abelard proposed that Jesus' death was basically God going to extremes to convince people that he loved them, while Anselm's theory of divine satisfaction, which became predominant in the West, shifted the focus to God, saying that Jesus was dying to satisfy God's honor. Later in the Middle Ages, the 16th century French theologian John Calvin modified Anselm's idea, changing it to a crime and punishment model. He thought that, because God is eternally righteous, sin is like a crime against God that he is required to punish with death and eternal hell. Therefore Jesus, who also had eternal righteousness, had to die in your place. That's why it's called penal substitution. Anselm's and Calvin's ideas are based on a retributive punishment system, which was a way for the medieval landowners to maintain their control over the poor peasants and serfs. We think biblical righteousness has nothing to do with these convoluted medieval concepts. In fact, we think that those ideas are a way of making God look more like sinful, frightened people. At Forging Ploughshares, we think that Jesus came to the world to make things right in the world, and that's what the biblical idea of righteousness is all about, making things right. So instead of thinking about righteousness as trying to satisfy an angry God, we have to first ask, what is wrong with the world, and how did Jesus work to make it right? The Bible, from the beginning, says that sin and death go together. And in the creation and fall story in Genesis, God predicts that because of sin and death, things will get harder, people will become more violent, and will always seek more power, control, and wealth. Think of it as a death orientation. It means that, because of death, we become afraid and we try to extend our lives, even at the cost of other people. It's the source of all violence, greed, hate, envy, pride, exploitation, racism, slavery, murder, and war, the source of all evil. In fact, we believe that the powers themselves, Rome and all empires, are caused by this problem, the need to fight each other to survive. This means that Jesus didn't die to satisfy God or to take your punishment. It wasn't a payment to Satan or just a way of saying I love you. Instead, when Jesus died and rose, he defeated the powers of the empires. He defeated death in his resurrection so that we could live this new way with him, the way of the cross. That's why he said, "Pick up your cross and follow me," because living like this is the way to make things right again. And he promised that if we share in his cross, we also share in his resurrection. That's how we are freed from the law of sin and death. It's how Jesus' life and death and resurrection make things better. Now that sounds kind of hard. In fact, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 1 said, "Some religious people who are often looking for comfort and security may stumble at this idea, and the people who are fighting for power will think it's just stupid. But for those of us who are being saved, who are free from the law of sin and death, Jesus' way of the cross is the real power in this world." We believe that is the best way to understand the point of the cross. In our next video, we'll dig a little deeper into how Jesus' life, death, and teaching address the problems of the world.